Bigger than capes.
Give me some sadness.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
Oh, dry.
Hello, welcome to Bigger Than Capes. It's the end of May, I guess, and this is our end of May roundup, I guess. I'm Zach, and this week I'm joined by Angela, Matt, and Will. These guys, what's up? Shaking. How you doing?
Yeah,
Hello,
I'm
yeah.
doing good.
I'm also very good, thank you, bud. How are you doing?
Yeah, you know, it is what it is. I'm going. I don't know.
Things continue.
Glossop has reminded me what it's all about with a good solid downpour today after being in like sort of the high 30s as of yesterday.
It's important that, you know, that doesn't last. I think that we have a reign of enlightenment, a reign of awareness.
I was in the heat wave of Spain in Barcelona, and then back to the cloudy grey of my homeland.
It's interesting that we've both been to Barcelona within the last week, but not together.
Indeed.
But yeah, real
as we normally
toasty,
holiday together.
Oh, we do, yeah, naturally. Bigger than Cape seaside holiday this summer.
Yeah. Bognor this year, isn't it? It's going to be lovely.
Yeah.
Late August. At the Pontins.
Out of curiosity, did tiger mosquitoes try and kill you, or was that just me?
Just you, I think. We did.
Oh,
we were
good.
We're pretty lucky with the bugs. Was it as hot when you were there? Because it kind of got steadily more intense as we.
It kind of fluctuated. I think the hottest we had was like 30.
Yeah, no, it got to about 36, I think, when we were there. It was.
Don't need that.
No one needs that.
That's excessive. That's just too. There's a line, and it crossed that line.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a toasty place to be.
Isn't it just good
That
though?
It is. Oh
Great
yeah,
food.
really good food. Well, that's all we've got time for this week. We make the same jokes every week, but they're still funny.
Also more relevant though, like
To us.
great comic shops as well.
Yeah, they've got a lot of comic shops in not very much space as well. They're kind of packed in.
I went to one place that had just a huge like Black Sad mural on the wall.
Yeah.
It made me deeply happy. I sort of lamented over just flicking through all the books and thinking like, I wish I could read any of this.
I thought you were just going to finish that with I wish I could read.
Yeah.
I wish I could.
And you'd been
Why do you think
flicking
I
else
like
the
my
entire
picture books so
time.
much? Yeah. I just wait for you to explain what the book's about and then kind of pick up on context cues. Otherwise, I've just been looking at the pretty pictures.
I mean, if it ain't broken.
Yeah.
Works for me.
So, anyone got any like news or such, or should we just dive straight on in?
I've got some brief news, very brief, which is that Valiant are releasing their classic collection, and they're starting with Exo Manowar in June. I've pretty much owned most of it already in various films.
Surely your vault. I mean, are you going to duplicate? Do you now need the re-release?
The fact that I have some of them in the original 90s singles and in the collected hardback from whenever and in digital suggests that I don't have a problem with duplicating my content.
No, exactly.
So yes, yeah.
Did you buy any of the like random 90s trades? Because I know they didn't collect every arc; they just collected some. Because I've got a few, and I don't really understand why. Because they don't tell a full story; they're just.
But they exist, and therefore, no, I've always missed out on the trades. I did bid on a couple on eBay, and I got sniped. Who I got sniped by, I would love to know, because
Right here.
I want to meet this person, and I want to know more about them.
Your soulmate.
Everyone I've picked up seems to be like, look, it's issues 14 to 18 of Harbinger. It's in the middle of 2 story arcs. You don't know what's happening. Have fun. But they're all like that. There's no like.
I can imagine a future where you're telling the story of how you met your partner and saying, "Oh no, we met on the internet. Oh, through a dating site. No, we were both bidding on."
No, the bastard
1990
stole my
Bloodshot
my Valiant.
issue 60.
Yeah. Yeah. Sad but true. Yeah, that'll be what it is. Yeah.
That'll be the clincher.
That'll be the clincher. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am curious how much demand there is for considering how easy it is to go and pick up Valiant singles, and they've done the omnibuses, and they did those kind of introductory hardbacks like in 2006 or 7 or something. Yeah. I am curious who is left that is in desperate need of 90s Valiant that hasn't, and they did those USB sticks. They included everything.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember them.
And you can get them on Comixology. So who is the audience now?
Aside from me. Yeah, aside from me. It's just me.
Like, I mean, some people like, having the physical, like, originals. And that, I guess.
Plus, all things 90s is in again, isn't it? It's
Oh, yeah.
I finally feel slightly justified in my bad taste for once.
Some would say the 90s is never out.
Would you ever buy the new versions and turn over your originals for, I mean, let's be honest, moderate profit?
For pennies.
It wouldn't. There would
you
be
got
no
the
profit.
foil covers?
There would be. I've got the foil covers. I can't give up my foil covers. No.
Even for £10.
God no, because I spent more
That's
than
a
that on
significant
some
profit,
of them.
Angela. I feel that's the thing with Valiant. When you start buying 90s Valiant, you're paying more than anyone wants for them, than anyone would pay for them. You're digging your own grave in, and it's made of aging, yellowing paper and unreliable staples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm glad I'm not
some of them are real shiny.
Yeah, but some are shiny. Yeah, there's some lovely foil covers there. Absolutely.
I have at least 2 foil Ninjak #1, so I could gift one to Will, and ultimately that would be the downfall, I think.
Do you think that would be like a gateway drug?
That is a really pretty one as well. The Ninjak foil cover is really, really pretty.
Calling you at 4 in the morning. Right. I've just spent 200 quid on a huge box of Valiant.
Welcome to my world.
If you're going to do that, I'm going to compete with you and try and get him into cross-gen.
Which is harder to buy.
You can all compete for my obsessions. I mean, I'm always tempted when I see like old Turtles comics.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Actually, so I'll try and get him into cross-gen. Angela, you try and get him into 90s Valiant. Zach, you can try and get him into, I don't know, like Malibu comics or something.
Oh, great. I get the challenge. Niche.
But yes, so my quick bit of news, new Chainsaw Man trailer came out a little while back. Looks incredible as expected. So everyone check that out. Hoping to try and do an episode when the anime itself actually comes out. I'm going to try and conscript Will again to see how he feels about it as an adaptation.
I'm a pretty willing participant in that.
Excellent.
So I guess it's clobbering time. I guess it's time for us to do the episode that we done do.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's done do it.
Let's done it.
So, as I say every month, and sometimes it's true, this week, this month.
This week, month, fuck.
this month,
place.
We are rounding up 3. No, fucking shit. Fuck. This month, we are rounding up 4 comics from 4 different publishers. All indie, baby. All the time. As we always do. Yeah.
We don't always get 4 different publishers, so that is worth.
Yeah.
Some of the words I've said are true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which ones?
Just reauthor them.
So, I'm going to introduce our first book, which, contrary to my notes, is published by Boom Studios. Which publisher do you think I wrote down? Comment below.
Dynamite.
IDW.
So
I thought Dynamite because of the word boom.
Boom, baby.
Boom goes the dynamite.
So I'm going to be introducing Grim #1, Chapter 1, Don't Fear the Reaper. Written by Stephanie Phillips, illustrated by Flaviano, coloured by Rico Renzi, and lettered by Tom Napolitano. Basically, this tells the story, or begins to tell the story, of Jessica Harrow, who is a Grim Reaper, and she done reaped Brian Michael Andrews, who's just died in a car crash. He ain't too happy about that. Fair play. And through the course of this issue, basically steals Jess's scythe, bails, and heads to the real world, where he is then pursued by Reapers. Other Reapers include Eddie, who is a kind of Eddie Vedder 1980, not Eddie Vedder, Eddie Van Halen 1980s hair metal aesthetics man, and Marcel, who just seems like a regular dude. I guess by comparison, don't we all? I quite liked this. I was interested because we've already had a pretty good, I dare say, fantastic Grim Reaper story in the last year in Carmen. So I was kind of interested to see, hot off of that, which came out in trade like a week ago, what people would be doing with another Grim Reaper story. I think Stephanie Phillips has done some really good comics lately, and that's a positive start, obviously. I feel like this is different from Carmen in basically every way it could be. It's kind of fun and cartoony, but not too cartoony, if that makes sense. And I don't know, I kind of liked everything here. I liked the colours, liked the art, liked the brief moment where Jessica has a skeleton face. Big fan.
I was about to say, that was probably my favourite part of the book.
Yeah, it's really good. And I think just Grim Reaper outfits that they have, the kind of black and red, almost military style, except for Eddie, who is in a fishnet vest, if memory serves. Yeah, all kind of works for me. It's just incredibly goth and, high. Anyone else?
Yeah, talking about like the costume design for it, I really loved kind of the variety on theme with it. How, like you say, they were like they weren't uniform, but they all shared motifs and a color scheme and stuff, whilst still being uniform enough that you would say, okay, yes, like these people all belong to the same thing. Like, and Skeleton Face was very good.
Skeleton Face forever.
Yeah. Skeleton Face forever. Yes.
I can't remember what the other ones were. Was it Zombie Beetles forever and Sax Mummy forever?
Sax Mummy.
Sorry, Matt. Please continue.
No, I was going to just let because both Andrew and Will had their hands up. So.
Okay. Also, the others gone.
All right. So I too quite like this. I really like the art. I like a lot about the art, including the design, as you've said, of the various kind of outfits of the Reapers. I think the scythes are cool. That's just a cool design. I like that the sort of real world art is more pencily and shady, and that anything in either related to or in the afterlife is much more kind of like solid colours and a little bit more cartoony.
Yeah.
I like that it's got that contrast. I think it's really good. As you've mentioned, like there have been other Grim Reaper stories. I don't think what we get so far is more like a variation on a theme than it is like a completely unique idea.
Right.
And I think this issue suffers a bit of first issue syndrome of being a lot of setup, and I feel that the actual story is just crammed into the last 2 pages.
I agree with that.
As it tries to tell you kind of what's the reason you should keep reading the book. So I think there's a lot to like about it, but I think it didn't necessarily get its story, its like ongoing plot ideas across.
No,
perfectly.
I didn't think I was going to like it at first. Like I started this going, yay, another Grim Reaper book. But it kind of gets it together kind of about at the halfway point. Sorry, Angela.
Hello. Yes. Yeah, I would agree with Will. I like it because the setup is good. It is a good way of doing setup, but it does feel, because it's a really short book. I mean, it's 20 odd pages, and it feels like it could be a bit longer. I will not comment further on the art because we've all decided art is good, and that is correct. I will say what I did find interesting was like in the waiting room area where they're all sat waiting for their number to be called, you've got that giant globe which has all the names rotating round on it. And I spent an awful lot of time staring at those names, trying to make sense of them. And some of them didn't seem to make sense. But I liked that. It was like a really nicely detailed touch that, made it just feel a little bit more real-worldy. But yeah, I liked it because I like how it's a Grim Reaper story, but it's doing something a bit different, Grim Reaper-y wise. And it's not super serious. Because I adore Carmen, but man, you go through it with that book emotionally. So it's nice to have a Grim Reaper story where there's a little bit of humour in there as well. And also, Marcel is best dressed. End of story.
Yes,
Yeah.
He's...
But I like the variety in that department. You get an image where there's like a centurion, sort of like someone from the sort of Spanish Inquisition, a cowboy, a guy in motorbike garb, maybe a nun. Like you've got all sorts of reapers.
Yeah, and a pirate.
And a pirate and a caveman. I think there's like tons of fun stuff you can explore there. So yeah, visually, like super impressed.
Yeah. Just a pretty solid.
Yeah, solid's fair.
I think my only kind of complaint was that I think some of the backgrounds were pretty sparse, but I think we've accepted that kind of is often the case when the foreground is so bitchin'.
Yeah.
I think, to be fair to the book, when it does backgrounds, it puts a lot of work into them.
Yeah, definitely. Like when we see like the street in New York,
or sort of when they're crossing Styx, and the background is just like nothing but them being carried along atop, like soul, like people, and then a sort of red sky. There's a lot of clearly a lot of work been put in there, but yeah, in other places they kind of it's much more relaxed, shall we say, than those big moments,
which does work. I think it draws focus to the characters and the things that are happening, which not necessarily a bad thing, but I know we often get hung up on the sparseness of backgrounds.
Yes. But I will always love, just for a slight sort of filmic like similarity, like just the when there's stylistic differences between sort of the world of the living and the world of the dead in terms of the art, like in Powell and Pressburger's A Matter of Life and Death, how it kind of shifts between the real world being in color and heaven being filmed in black and white.
Like in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Excellent Adventure, yes. And stuff like that.
Both
like
seminal classics.
Exactly. Well, I mean, yeah. And it was Bogus Journey, wasn't it? That you're thinking of?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit, yeah, that's Bogus Journey.
Yeah.
A less seminal classic than the original, but...
Still a classic.
I think they all count.
Still a classic.
Yeah, so I think that's me.
So, on that bombshell, Angela, do you want to...
Yeah. Brace yourselves. So... sorry. So the next book is Archer and Armstrong 1 from Valiant, who may have been mentioned already today. So I'm going to mispronounce some names. The writer is Steve Fox. The art is by Marcio Ferrito. The colorist is Alex Gamerez. The letterer is Hussein Otsmain Allahu. And the cover art...
that one you can do.
That one I can do. Very important. He's doing a lot of good work. And the cover artist is Bernard Chang, for those of you who wish to get in on the cover artist. So, for those of you who are unaware, this is the third Archer and Armstrong book since the reboot in 2012. So, the 2012 book was Fred Van Lente, which is still the gold standard of Archer and Armstrong. And
maybe the gold standard of Valiant.
Pretty much, yeah. So that was followed by A&A, which we will not speak of A&A because it was terrible. So Steve Fox has come along and he's rebooting Archer and Armstrong. So Archer is Obadiah Archer, Obi to people he dates, like Faith. And he was raised in a cult to kill Armstrong. There's a little more to it than that, but that's the basic plotline. Armstrong is actually Aram Ani Prada, and he was given immortality by the Boon. So he's an immortal. He's been drinking his way through history, basically. But when he and Archer meet, they have some misunderstandings, but they get together and basically they're best friends. They bring out the best in each other because Archer's a little bit uptight about life sometimes. Armstrong is morally iffy sometimes, so to say the least. So they work really well together. They complement each other. But in this particular story now, so they've been together many years. Archer's used to Armstrong's various foibles. Armstrong gets into a fight with the Gardeners of Earthly Delight, who steal his bag, which that was an entire plot point in A&A. It's made me appreciate that plot point in this book, so thank you, Steve Fox. So the Gardeners of Earthly Delight attack, and they slice off his ear, and normally his ear would grow back because he's immortal. That's how this works, but his ear is not growing back. So Archer is worried that Armstrong is losing his immortality. Armstrong's just like, well, I wasn't going to live forever anyway. I knew my time was limited. Let's just make the most of what we have. I'm sure he'll have some sort of drinking breakdown at some point. So Archer's decided he's determined to save Armstrong and keep him immortal because he doesn't want to lose his best friend. Meanwhile, the eccentric, who is a guy in a wheelchair who can't remember his nurse's name, he collects things and he is after collecting Armstrong. And we also have the Moor, who is a mysterious villain who licks blood. He's coming in next issue. So there's a lot of setup. If you're not familiar with Archer and Armstrong, I think this probably does quite a good job of introducing who they are and what they do. Particularly with Archer, because Archer has all these fancy moves that he does because he was trained to be an assassin. There's a whole other thing about how he ends up being able to mimic all these different fighting styles, but that's sort of in there. So it's really nicely done for that. I think it's a good introduction. If you've not read any Archer and Armstrong before, I think you could start with this book if you wanted to. Also, I really like the art. It's slightly different to the normal Valiant House style, not hugely, slightly, very slightly. And yeah, there's just some really nice bits of art in there, particularly when Archer's like trying to meditate and the sun's coming through the window. And also, it's good art when you draw Armstrong in his underwear. You know, that you have to be bold to do that. So yeah, it's good art. It's good writing. I'm really excited to read more of this because Archer and Armstrong were my introduction to Valiant. I adore them as characters, and I'm really glad that they've got another shot, and I'm glad that it's well written and well arted. I was trying to keep it brief. I failed. Well done, me.
It was pretty good.
Carry on.
I largely agree with everything Angela has said here. I think kind of the Archer and Armstrong dynamic was struggled with a little bit in A&A, especially after Fred Van Lente kind of nailed it so much. I think Elliot Rahal in Escape from Gulag 396 was like a shining example of understanding the kind of pairing, and since then we haven't really consistently seen them represented, so it's kind of feels like this takes the best bits from Fred Van Lente and Elliot Rahal's work and runs with it, whilst clearly the kind of tip of the hat to A&A without taking the things that perhaps didn't work as well from that run.
It took good bits, yeah. It took the good bits from A&A.
Yes.
And
But yeah, I completely agree. Like, it feels like a spiritual successor to the Van Lente run, and pretty much ignores the events of A&A. It keeps the one good bit, which is the single good issue in my opinion, which is the Archer Faith date.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even just the mention that that's still an ongoing thing fills my heart with joy. I think the art is really solid throughout. I don't think sure there's any bits of it that like sort of really blow me away, but I think it is like it's got a kind of fun, slightly goofy aspect to it, which I think really fits the characters. I think the design of the bad guy, even though you only see him a little bit, but that's really creepy.
He's got like that final page reveal of the teaser for the next month when you actually see inside his mouth and stuff.
He's got a sort of gimp zip and a really gross big tongue. The story itself, I don't think is presenting anything like super new. Sort of Immortal loses their healing factor, and the idea of a collector, like wanting to collect a human, a sort of superhuman. I think are stories that I've seen before, but I think you're right that the relationship is really good here between Archer and Armstrong, which I think is the core of the book, and it's got room to push out from those beginnings, hopefully. I also agree it is a really good jumping on point. I think it touches all of the really important bits about the boon. Is it the Akashic Shield? Akashic Field?
Yeah,
like, the Akashic record. Yeah.
Archer's ability to sort of tap into all, was it like all human memory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
But was pretty much forgotten about in A&A as just being a thing. It just sort of stopped being referred to. So I think it's really good that they're bringing that stuff back, and they focus on that a bit. I think it's a good start. But I think I'd like to see a few more like twists and turns, I think, to the story, just to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. I found myself like actually laughing at an Archer and Armstrong issue again, which was really nice after A&A. Like, made me just go like, was this ever good? And I had to go back and reread all my Van Lente and go, oh wait, yes. But it was just stuff like final page reveal where you see like the Eccentrics collection, and you go and see the cage basically for Armstrong, and it's like a gorilla enclosure. It's got like the rope and the little nets for him to climb and stuff. And I was like, yeah, that, stuff like that made me smile. Like, I'm always up for like the weird gangs and weird sect groups and non-sect groups, like and just their cool little themes. That always makes me smile. And just seeing some of that sort of come back a bit was nice. It felt weird to see a modern Armstrong who looked maybe a little bit too together at points, like a little bit too sort of handsome, almost.
I mean, if you think of his brothers, I'm just saying,
like, don't get me wrong, Armstrong can be hunky, but like, there are a few panels where I'm like, oh, this is a hunky bear.
Yeah, he needs a bit of a dad bod.
Yeah, it's not even a dad bod. It's just like, I liked this. I liked this, and more than anything, it was just. I think that when I saw the message from Angela to the group chat, basically saying that it was really good, I was like, oh, thank God, because I was dreading reading it because I didn't want to be let down again. And Angela, like I say, as everyone who listens regularly, being the big Valiant fan, like the biggest Valiant fan probably here.
Probably anywhere.
I'll take it.
It was just such a relief.
So we know we wouldn't make Angela cry.
I'm so glad everybody liked it, because that would have just made me so sad. Because it's a good book. Because my boys are back and they're good. And I've missed them.
It has been a long time.
It's been 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ.
Fair enough.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Have we hit the 10-year anniversary of the reboot?
No,
like very nearly.
Coming, because that's why we're getting. This is the year of Valiant, isn't it? But
yeah.
After the summer of Valiant, and no one else has mentioned it, so I'm going to jump in. One of my favorite things in this was that when we see the first page of Armstrong running out of the bar, is that there's a bunch of the 1% dudes in the bar behind him. I just like that.
I remember from the original run, like some of the sect ended up being just hilarious by the end. They were like, what they call the Gnomes of Switzerland.
Gnomes of Zurich.
Gnomes of Zurich. And then there was those guys that just had like box heads that had emojis on them.
Yeah.
They were really good. Yeah, there was some quality designs in that.
I still love, was it the Null?
Yes.
Yeah.
What was there? The world, like, nothing. They had the great phrase.
Nothing is forever.
Yes.
Forever.
No, nothing is forever.
Nothing is forever.
Forever.
Which is the best way of telling you what this arc is.
This is a little bit off the rails, but didn't they do that storyline twice? Like, there was the one with the Null where they created a sentence that if you read it, you became infected with like Null virus.
Yeah. And
then there was another story, I think in Exo or maybe Ninjak, where they go up against Silk, and he has also written.
I'm not sure if is it not? Oh Christ, what are they called? Unity? Is it Unity?
Oh, is it one of the early volumes of Unity? Because it's definitely Exo, Ninjak, and Livewire. I think.
Yeah, I think it might be.
Yes,
Unity.
Unity.
And Silk has also written a sentence that like he can use to take over people.
Mm.
Yeah, and then everyone who hears it says that it justifies their hate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, if it worked as a Monty Python joke, it works for a comic book plot in a more sinister way.
Yeah, actually, fair enough. You've argued your corner, and I can see.
What a corner to argue.
That's not where I thought I'd be going with that.
I'm going to use it more often as well. Well, if it works for Monty Python.
Yeah.
And there's so much Monty Python that no one's ever seen that who's going to argue, you know?
Surely some of it's going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, I said that as if I don't like Monty Python. I do. A lot of it works.
One of my favourite jokes in Family Guy was
Oh God!
And there's not a lot. Is Peter saying to Meg like, "I'm going to leave you in a room watching nothing but the unfunny Monty Python," and her going, "I'm a girl. I don't think any of it's funny." It's really stuck with me.
It's funny because it's.
Well, if something from Family Guy was gonna have to stick with you, that's one of the less bad things that could, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair comment.
Like I liked those first 3 seasons when they came out, but I've hit myself with the memory gun on as much of it as I can.
I was
like 9 or 10.
Yeah, there are large chunks of Family Guy I know I've seen, but I cannot recall, which I think says a lot.
That's a blessing.
Yeah,
it's like a trauma.
American Dad, on the other hand.
The Cleveland show, now that's where they hit their stride.
Seth MacFarlane's cavalcade of cartoon comedy.
Finally, our spin-off show reveals itself.
What, just me talking about how much I fucking hate Family Guy?
And then we'll do occasional episodes once a month where we all talk about Ted every month.
Oh, God.
My minute-by-minute Mallrats podcast.
Finally.
It's been turned down.
I like the idea of something where we watch, like there was a podcast where they watch the same film every day or every week for a year.
The worst idea of all time.
I sort of like the idea of doing that. Maybe just with a particular issue of a comic, and we'll just read it over and over again.
It's that second issue of A&A where it's the Faith and Archer date just over and over.
I feel like this is one of the things that Grant Morrison was trying to warn us about, ever doing.
Well,
you make it sound like you make it sound like Grant Morrison sent us a letter. It's like, no, learn from my mistakes.
Did you receive a letter when you were 7 addressed to Bigger Than Capes, and it's travelled through time?
Oh yeah.
Should we move on?
No.
Yeah.
Why on earth not? Take on a different quest, perhaps.
Ooh la la. Maybe I shouldn't be introducing this with that level of segue. But the book I am introducing is called Quests Aside. It's published by Vault Comics. It's written by Brian Shermer. The art is by Alina Gogu. The colorist is Rebecca Nolte, and the letterer is And World Design. It is all centered around an inn run by Barrow, who is a sort of ex-quester. And it's about the people in that inn and their relationship to the land and the sort of mystical creatures that come in, and Barrow's relationship with King Dirk, and obviously some past deeds that will affect the future. I was really pleasantly surprised by this book because for some reason I can't really put my finger on. I just didn't think I was going to like it. Perhaps I think it sets itself up as a comedy, like it makes no bones about it. And I think comedy is one of the most sort of subjective mediums to have in a comic. And more often than not, it completely misses the mark for me. But actually, I found this really funny, and I thought the art is really good. I think it has some like really clever bits in it. There's still a couple of jokes that sort of don't land, but there's a lot of them, and most of them do. I think it's got a pretty fun, like varied cast of characters, and sets up sort of the potential of what's going to come next. And I was really drawn in by this. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yes. One thing I struggled with was the sheer number of characters in this book. There are a lot, and they all do different things, and they've all got pasts, and they've all got stuff going on. And I did find it at times quite hard to keep track of who was who and what was what. And yeah, I got some of the characters confused at points. And I was like, oh no, that's not the one who wants to kill the king for that reason. It's the one that wants to kill the king for the other reason. I will say I really enjoyed Ray the Skeleton, who is the chef. I thought he was great because, more sentient skeletons in comics.
We're always going to love skeletons.
Yeah, it's like Sack's mummy. You've got to do stuff with the bodies of the dead, and also his sentient cleaver Clive, which is just the best name for a talking cleaver, and also it reminded me of the axe in Barbaric, so I enjoyed that. I was like, yay, reference, and it was funny. And I have to say, my favourite bit was where those questers get. They're being warned by the bard and then they get crushed by the giant's foot anyway. And I was on board from that point. So I enjoyed it, but I just found it a little bit confusing with the massive cast of characters, all of whom are nicely designed and well drawn though. So there's that.
I agree largely with what you two have said. I was surprised, but I thought this was kind of fun, weird fantasy. It immediately made me think of, there was another Vault fantasy series called, I want to say A Song for the Deaf, but I think it might be. I'm very concerned that's a Queen's ref. It was either A Song for the Deaf, A Song for the Dead, something like that.
To Paralyze.
But then the sequel was Necromancer's Map, and there were 2 of them, and then that just seems to have ceased to exist, which was kind of a light-hearted, funny fantasy story about a kind of well-meaning necromancer, and hilarity ensues. And I kind of got similar vibes from this, that it's all kind of light-hearted, well-meaning fantasy characters getting crushed by giants, which appeals to me because I liked whatever that other one was called. And any takers on if it was definitely Songs for the Deaf, Song for the Dead, Song for
songs involved.
Dead.
I know about Necromancer. I've heard of Necromancer's Map.
Well, Necromancer's Map was Necromancer's Map, A Song for the Dead.
Songs for the Dead.
There we go.
Comics, yes.
Which definitely is a Queens of the Stone Age song as well, but
can't help dip in the same well.
But very much this is the kind of dumb fantasy. Vault seems to really have nailed down the dumb fantasy Zach likes, because this... Did we just say Songs for the Dead?
We did, yeah. Songs for the Dead.
Barbaric are all fantasy that I'm kind of drawn to. I think there was a lot of jokes, as Will said. Some of them very good. I liked the first page or second page reference to Jim Zub and Sisperia.
Yes. Skull Kickers was Zub, wasn't it?
That was Zub, I
think so, yeah. But overall I like this. I think art good, jokes mostly good, premise good.
Yeah, I would say one of the thing I actually kind of like about this is it's got the kind of we've got to save the youth center vibe to it. It's these are the misfit kids from the poor fraternity or whatever, going up against the slobs versus snobs kind of situation, and they're going to have to save the youth center, but it's got the fantasy setting to it that's fun. The kind of really likable character designs, and which is helped by how good some of the expressions are drawn. In particular, the facials are really good. The bard, for example, has a few really excellent panels, when the king's entourage is leaving and he's going to play again, and it's just oh no. But yeah, it's more hits than misses, but there are misses in here. It's not perfect by any stretch, but it's got enough characters with enough tones to them that I think you can find something to like.
Mm-hmm.
And enough, like I say, enough of the jokes hit. And it's having fun with its setting. Like I do love the gag with the skeleton in the bed as just an opener to the character. It's really fun.
Speaking of jokes hitting, sorry, I'd completely forgotten. Orc comedian though.
Oh yeah,
so good.
Crap, but so funny.
Yeah. I think it had earned it by that point. Like I think it had built up its tone and what it was going for, that it can get away with something being a little bit cheesy, and I think it got it right.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that alone is worth the price of admission. I'm not saying pick this up just because there's 2 jokes from an orc comedian, but on the other hand,
I love the bard off that set out like an anime fight, and that the king's bard has this like 3-necked lute.
Yeah,
that's just great stuff. I don't know, there's lots of like little interpersonal stuff. Obviously Barrow and King Dirk have a history. Vale wants to kill King Dirk for taking everything away from her randomly. Jodan's in love with with Susanna, who's currently sleeping with Ray the skeleton. There's some other like really cool art bits. There's a part where Vale is explaining to Barrow that she's going to become a spy, and for like one panel it's Barrow sat at his desk and Vale obviously living this fantasy of working through tunnels and getting information, and Barrow's and his desk is in colour but the background becomes like a grey scale, and I think that's a really smart way of like showing the difference in what's going on. There's a storeroom which is obviously like a magical Escher painting where everything's just randomly strewn about in this perhaps endless dimension.
That did actually remind me of Archer and Armstrong when we see the inside. Well, specifically A&A when we see the inside of the bag.
Inside of the satchel.
Yeah.
And one thing that I always really like when it's present, and Angela, I'm surprised you've not mentioned it, but the lettering throughout this is exceptional, and I think the onomatopoeia is like perfect in almost every example.
I was gonna mention it, but you beat me to it. Well,
I'm sure you're coming around.
I mean, as we know, Underworld Design does good lettering, and that is also true here. My particular favourite is like when Susanna's waking up and raids the skeletons there, and she's like, "Ah, my God!" I just love the way that just loops, like a scream, and then it sort of goes, "Oh no, a skeleton in my bed. Whatever shall I do?" I just like the way that is designed and lettered, but it's all good.
I like all the bits with the bard where you get, as Matt was mentioning about when the king's entourage are leaving and he's looking all sheepish and it just says "cord." And that immediately puts a sound in my head. And then the King's Bard gives him side eye. It just says side eye.
Yeah.
When it made me laugh, I really genuinely laughed out loud reading this.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Still also on lettering, I did really like that anytime someone swears, it's kind of just little fantasy icons.
Yes.
So just like shield, crossbone, sword.
Yeah. Also really good. I think it's been mentioned already, but the setting of in most fantasy stories would be a place that you stopped at briefly and then moved on from. And I like that the sort of the tavern inn has become the centre of the story instead. I think that's cool. And there's a ghost at the end. So
bonus.
So there.
Speaking of ghosts. Thank you, Will.
You're welcome.
I'm going to talk about I Hate This Place, written by Carl Starks, with art by Artyom Topolin, colours by Lee Lothridge, letters by Pat, and letters by Pat Brousseau. So the book is largely about Gabby and Trudy, who are moving out to a farm that Gabby has inherited from her great aunt Marilyn, a woman who she only ever met once and had kind of a traumatic experience with, where she was forced to kind of like quickly leave, and has never seen again until out of the blue she inherits the land and their cattle. She and Trudy move out and find the kind of strangeness of the farmhouse. It's got locks on both sides of the doors, all the doors. It's got like a safe room with hundreds of VCR tapes, and like TV and big TV and sound system and soundproofed walls. And then like night comes and they hear the cows outside, and Gabby goes to investigate, only to kind of see a ghost and experience seemingly how that person died, and then realize, oh, it's not just a ghost, it's dozens of them. It's seemingly everyone who's died within this area comes back every night. And they find a tape left by their Aunt Marilyn, which kind of lays out the rules that everything seems to operate under, and what they're going to have to kind of live with now, maybe. There's also crime going on, and one of the people who's come to help out on their farm, earlier on in the issue, we see murder another person involved in a crime with them. It's a really interesting horror book that kind of mashes together so many things and takes an approach where it's explaining just about everything so quickly, and so early on. And the part of the horror of it almost comes from the fact that the characters know the rules and are going to be, and have had all of this explained to them, and kind of the finality of the fact that they feel like that we've been told, well, they're just going to have to live with this. It's like there's a line about this that's like, we learn to just live with all the nonsense. It's not easy, but if you follow the rules, you'll be safe. And then it's, no, I'm sorry, you'll never be safe, but you will survive. And it's just this kind of, this having to accept that.
For sure. I agree with a lot of what you said there, man. I particularly want to pick up on, as you say, this sort of mishmash of horror tropes or sci-fi tropes or crime tropes, or like it's got aliens, it's got a horned monster, it's got all sorts of stuff going on. I think it deals with the material like quite seriously, but it still feels like it has a little tongue-in-cheek, throwing all of these things together on this one little farm, which I think is really fun. You mentioned it explains a lot really quickly, and I agree. But I also think it's done like quite masterfully. I think you get a lot of exposition. Yeah, but you get to know these two main characters just through like idle conversation. It never stops the story or stops the kind of momentum to just explain what's going on. And as you say, you get the rules through this videotape, so it always feels like the action is telling the story, and it's not just the writer saying, right here, this is what's going on. I thought the flow of it was really great. I think the art's pretty cool. I think the colouring especially is like really, really nice.
Can I just say, I know Angela's going to say it almost certainly, but lettering.
It's another high bar for lettering.
Damn it! There you go. There goes my point.
I think one of the things that surprised me most about this is that it's kind of all the things you expect from a Kyle Starks book, but not in the way Kyle Starks does them. Like in the opening scenes with the kind of criminal meetup, we get kind of the, over the top, out of the blue violence, the gun crime, the, classic sleazy criminal types, and then the kind of weird, just general weirdness, which I think is in every one of Kyle Stark's books is weird, even when it's kind of quite a straight story. I think there's a weirdness to it. I think the weirdness here is just taken on the very over the top supernatural. Hey, ghosts, UFOs.
There's no world's greatest assassin in this.
Not yet, but this is the first issue. There's still time. We don't know a lot about Itchy. Itchy could be right up there. But I like that it's still the things Kyle Starks always does, but kind of presented in a way that feels different from the way he would normally do it. I also think it makes a huge difference when he works with another artist.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't get me wrong, I love his art, but I think when he works with someone else, it kind of changes the tone quite significantly. And art is really good here. Art and colouring, lettering, as we've mentioned, all really, really good.
Yeah.
Yes. All good. Sorry, I was going to repeat what everyone else has said. I will say, I have to say, props to Kyle Starks for writing an interesting relationship between Gabby and Trudy.
Yeah.
Because that is, because you've got Trudy who's like the tough survivalist, and she still likes her orange cupcakes, so that's nice. But it feels a very real relationship. It doesn't feel like, oh, here are two characters who are together just because they're together. It feels like they do know each other. They've been together for a while, and all their little coupley interplays set against this sort of weird, horrific background. I think they work really well, and even though it's it's causing a bit of tension between them, like you can't leave the farm now. That's you done. I like that it doesn't completely, Trudy doesn't just stomp off and go, fine, you live here, but I'm leaving, which would have been like the classic tropey cliche.
Horror movie.
I like that doesn't happen, and I really think that's for me, that's sort of more of an interest, is the fact that you have these two interesting characters in their sort of relationship and how that is gonna develop in the face of a crazy guy in the woods that don't go near the horned man, run away. So all good.
Yeah, I didn't really touch on the art in my bit, but I love how no two characters look alike, even down to like body shape and like musculature. How Trudy, whenever she's like lifting anything heavy, you actually get to see the kind of definition and stuff like that. It's not afraid. Yeah, it's like she doesn't have the same body as Gabby. That's kind of, and that's like a thing that a lot of people fall into when particularly drawing women, is that they'll have exactly the same body type and all that sort of stuff, and they'll like avoid
just different coloured hair.
Yeah, and avoid showing like muscle definition because someone's supposed to be like conventionally attractive to what they think the average consumer's going to kind of want. So getting to see that sort of stuff, and just like I think that Adrian may have one of the best fucking sleazy guy designs, like sleazy criminal guy designs I have seen in forever. I just look at him and I hate him so much, but I can also see how a person could like him. You know what I mean? That sort of charisma that's there that also tells you to run away.
I think he's just an interesting insert into the story, because on one way or the other, he's either going to be trying to murder them while they're also running away from ghosts and aliens and haunted people, or he's going to become our best bet for survival.
Yes,
and they're going to have to team up with him, and either one is going to be fun.
Yeah, because there's clearly so much room for character conflict, even between Trudy and Gabby, but we also know that they're not just going to abandon each other at the first sign of actual conflict between each other, which makes this great, because I can say, yeah, we're going to actually get to see them argue and get to see them work things out between them and figure out whose approach and see how their relationship actually kind of functions under those sort of stressed times. Yeah, and just the lettering for, once again, sound effects and stuff. There's a particular sort of pair of panels that I really love, where we just where we just see rattle, rattle, rattle written all over, and it's taking over the panels, and it's this almost chalk style letters that kind of feels like someone sort of pushing and scratching against a window that's older and might have that little bit of give to it and stuff like that. Yeah, it's really cool, really good book. 10 out of 10.
I'm not sure I have much more to add.
Not a lot, really. I think we've kind of covered everything I had to say.
Yep.
So, are we moving on to our kind of wrapping up section?
We're gonna order them.
I suppose we have to, don't we?
Suppose we must. I think mine is separated in two lots of two. There's a top half and a bottom half, but they're all really close this month. There's not a book I've disliked, and I think my ordering is going to come by way of just tiny criticisms.
Yeah.
This is all by way of setup, by admitting to Angela that my fourth place is going to be Archer and Armstrong forever.
Right, I'm never speaking to you again, Will.
Well, I didn't know it was worth cracking a friendship over, but there we go.
Oh, damn it.
My only real criticism is I think the story's not incredibly inspired, but I really like the relationship between the characters. I think the art is decent, but again, probably not my favourite of the four. If it's all right with you, I'll keep going.
Carry on.
Please continue.
I can't actually murder you via Skype.
I just wanted to get that admission out of the way before we started, because if I let it sit in the room, it'd really have just really have rotted. The other one that I think is kind of similar for me is Grim, number 1, Don't Fear the Reaper. I think that the art, I prefer just a little bit more than Archer and Armstrong, but I think kind of have some similar criticisms about the story, or in this one maybe sort of slightly the lack thereof at the moment, but the designs are really cool. The actual art and colouring and everything is really good in that. My second place, and again these two are really, really close together, but my second place is going to be I Hate This Place, or as I prefer it to be called, Fuck This Place, because I love it when books say their own name, and Trudy says fuck this place, so that's what it's called now. The only reason I think I would separate out Quest Sides as my number 1 is that my expectations were sort of inexplicably low for that, and I really, really enjoyed the sort of surprise of the comedy hitting for me, and I think a lot of really cool ideas for a fantasy book. And that's me. That's my 4.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I go next? Let's go. Let's go next and redress the balance of Will. So, they are all really good, and it is quite close. But the bottom one for me, I'm going to say Grim, purely because there's not enough of it. It's pretty. It's a good setup. It's got interesting plot. I want to see where it goes. But I did feel like this could have been another 10 pages quite happily. And therefore, that's why that's there. And then I'm going to be controversial in 3. And I'm going to put I Hate This Place. Not big, I know. It's probably better written than the other 2. Not going to lie. The art is also excellent. The lettering is also excellent. And it's really good and it's fine. And, you know, the relationship between the characters is interesting. But as anyone knows, I'm not a massive horror reader. I'll probably read more of this just because it's Kyle Starks. I mean, Zach's shaking his head. To be fair, I've read more horror in the last 3 years than I've read in the previous 10. So there's that. I am possibly now becoming a horror reader. But yeah, I think it's just, you know, it's really, really good. And to be honest, I could have swapped this with Quests Aside, which is my number 2, quite easily. I've flip-flopped through this entire conversation, to be quite frank, what order those 2 are going to be in. So if you'd asked me in 5 minutes, it may very well have been a different order. Quest Aside was very confusing in terms of the number of characters, but I do like me some fantasy comedy. And it has a lot of fantasy comedy, and it has a skeleton who is a chef. And that's, I'm going to put that's purely the reason. And he's got a sentient cleaver called Clive. That's kind of sold it to me. That's just edged it over I Hate This Place. Ghosts versus skeleton. Skeleton every time, I'm afraid. Number 1 is probably no surprise to anyone, because it's going to be Archer and Armstrong forever. Because Archer and Armstrong have a very special place in my heart, and I don't care about the plot particularly. I care that it nails the dynamic between them. It nails those 2 characters. It nails the essence of Archer and Armstrong.
Yeah.
Steve Fox has written a load in the back of Valiant comics saying, you know, that he got into Valiant through that 2012 Van Lente run. And I can very much associate with that. So, yeah, for me, I'm just really pleased that there's an Archer and Armstrong book that I can enjoy and hopefully look forward to each month, which has not been the case previously. It's even made me retroactively like some of the aspects of A&A, like the bag. I mean, I always liked the Faith dating Archer thing, but yeah, you know, even stuff like the bag and little asides like that. So, yeah, that's number 1. But they're always my number 1, so no surprises there.
Oh, that's a very sweet way of putting it.
So now the silence off.
Fight.
I can go next. So yeah, this is a legitimate. Like, we've all said it, but this is a very hard one. My number 4, I'm going to go Grim. Again, it's probably going to be very good, and there are there are lots of little bits of this book that I really enjoyed. But I would agree with Angela and say there's not quite enough of it. I could have done with a bit more. But like I say, like, from being someone who on the first couple of pages was not excited to being like, oh, okay, I would like to see where this goes, like, and being much more invested in it than by page like 10. You know, it's got a lot of potential to be something to be something really good. Then this is kind of like complicated, but I am probably going to say Archer and Armstrong only because I would actually put it higher, because I am so unbelievably happy for this book. I've wanted this book for so long. I've wanted a good Archer and Armstrong book again. But, like we've done in other months, it's coming back to something. It's not necessarily something new. And we've previously that's kind of knocked things before. So whilst this is great and could easily kind of be much higher if I wasn't taking that into account, I'm going to put it there because but it makes me so unbelievably happy. I don't think anyone at home can kind of comprehend how happy we all are to have good Archer and Armstrong again. It's great. Please read it. Please support this book. I'm so happy. Then number 2 is Quests Aside. I'm not necessarily sure it's as good as Archer and Armstrong, but it's funny, it's charming, it's trying something. And again, it's something that could have very easily missed. And at points it does. But it does so much that enough of it hits for me to really like it and to want to give this weird little book, this weird little comedy book, a chance, and to kind of hope that it finds an audience and to kind of, I really liked it. Good book, good fun, funny skeleton, sax mummy. So obviously in first place is I Hate This Place, or Fuck This Place. This book rules. It's got, as weird as it sounds, this could maybe see this becoming my favorite Kyle Starks book if this is good. And it's like Zach was saying earlier, it's simultaneously such a Kyle Starks book and does so many things that Starks does without at the same time being another Kyle Stark, being just another Kyle Starks book. It's doing a lot. And I want to know everything that's going to happen. I want to see these characters interact, and I want to see them be thrown into these situations and how they're going to come out of them. What are they going? What's it going to be like? It's a great situation where they know what they've got to do to just survive, but it's about how they're going to try and make the choice instead to live. And I can't wait to find out.
Deep.
Yeah.
All right, so Zach, baby. In fourth, I'm gonna go Quest Aside. I like Quest Aside. I like the precursor. In case you've not heard it enough.
These you are hate all 4 of these books.
Hate them all equally. These are all good comics, and they're all good first issues. I think every day you asked all of us, we would all come up with different lists, except Angela, who is contractually obliged to praise Archer and Armstrong.
I have to.
Yeah. Quest Aside, for me, I like what it's trying to do. I think it suffers a little bit because I have read whatever that comic's called, Song for the Dead, Necromancer's Map, and was quite into that, and I'm not getting any more of it. I'm going to keep being sad about it because I was into that. And I think I'm just generally not a fantasy guy, so sup. But it is good. It looks good. It's funny. Reads good. Written good. Like, it's just good, isn't it? Yeah. 3, I'm going to go with Grim. I like Grim. Grim is aesthetically cool, aesthetically goth. A different take on Grim Reapers, which, you know, I'd like to think it'll be up there with the greats. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Carmen.
Yeah.
Others are available, I'm sure.
You already mentioned Bogus Journey earlier.
Oh, of course, the best incarnation of death. You know, Sandman can suck it because Bill and Ted did a better death. Fight me. He plays bass and raps. Come on.
And Twister.
Twister.
God. But that rap is so bad.
Maybe the king or a little street sweeper, but sooner or later you dance with the Reaper.
Dance with the Reaper, yeah.
Oh, I wish I had better things to do with my time. In 2, and solidifying this as appearing in everyone's list in a different place, I'm going to go Archer and Armstrong. I like this Archer and Armstrong. I had a good time. I think I'm going to continue to have a good time. It's funny. It is everything I want from Archer and Armstrong. However, and on the risk of this being like an apocalyptic event, I agree with Matt.
I'm just looking out my window for the Horseman now.
I hate this place. Fuck this place. It's just a really good comic. I think it ticks a lot of boxes that not a lot of comics do in being kind of all-out supernatural horror weirdness, but also having having LGBTQIA representation at its core, and how much just how much representative kind of weirdo horror do we get? And the answer is few, especially with a kind of cattle farm at the center of it. And this is just a very Zack thing, and it's Kyle Stark, so I think at some point it's just going to get real fucking funny.
Oh yeah,
I can't figure out how.
Part of me thinks it'll be funny in a Sam Raimi kind of like sheer violence and ludicrousness of it.
Yeah, more
fighting your own hand kind of way. I feel you.
Yeah, sort of tongue in cheek rather than outwardly. Like he's not going to have another fuck Tarkington.
No, it's going to be absurd when it's funny, I feel like, and then like occasionally kind of glib.
Yes, glib.
Good use of glib. We don't do that a lot.
Very good use.
No, I agree. I think it's gonna perhaps not take the overblown Kyle Stark's approach that some of his other things do, which might again be is Kyle Stark's growing as a person? Is that what this is?
He's growing as a writer.
He's not 7 foot tall.
Just a really good month for new comics. This isn't even everything. There were other books that looked really interesting. Twig looked pretty cool. Metal book.
Metal Games.
Those words fit. That's what it's called. Metal Society. Metal Society looks interesting. We've got the return of Unnatural. There's a lot of first issues that I think have a lot of promise, and we appreciate all 3 of those were from Image, but you get my point. There's been a lot of interesting things come out this month, and unfortunately we could only cover 4 of them, but I think there is plenty to go at.
Yeah,
comics are good.
Solid. Comics are still good, it turns out. Each month we ask the question.
Yeah, and occasionally we get we get a good answer.
Yeah, sometimes the answer is not so much.
Then sometimes we get a month. Sometimes you get a month like this that just kind of reaffirms that comics are good.
people will remember May of 2022 as the month that comics were good.
Nothing else about May.
One bit of news that's just got me excited is that we've just got the first union at a large scale US video game developer. So I'm very happy right now.
That is good news.
Yeah. Hooray!
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to edit that out, Matt, because of course the news comes at the start of the episodes.
Well, at least you can say it again next month.
You're the next time you're allowed to speak.
I don't say it enough, but I love you guys.
I tolerate you too.
Yeah, you don't say it enough. Expect it. A text message once a day when I wake up, please.
I'll kiss you on the forehead and tuck you in and tell you I love you. There we go.
That's what I've been missing.
Oh.
So I'm going to say it now in advance. Angela will be covering the rest of Archer and Armstrong over at biggerthancapes.com.
Yeah.
So tune in for those.
I've already covered issue 1, so if you want more of my insane babble about Archer and Armstrong, you can read it in text form.
If you want 1,000 words on the subject, that is available now.
It was 1,200 at one point. I cut it down slightly.
Something to think about. As always, we have a coffee page if you want to give us money to spend on coffee. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. Still not really looked into the logistics. And we'll be back next week, I guess, for another exciting whatever it is we're talking about.
It'll be a comic. It'll involve a comic in some way.
Assuming they're still good by then.
Yeah, that's a good question.
What if May's used them all up,
That's it now.
What if there are no good new comics?
Or
no good comics? Not even new. What if,
even the old ones turn bad?
Yeah.
They do go off after a while.
So why you keep them in the fridge, obviously.
Every comics fan has an industrial-sized freezer.
Yeah, whenever I go to book club, I take mine in a cool bag.
Just got to keep it fresh,
Yeah. Shall we finish before we somehow get even sillier?
I was going to launch into how I cured my comics, but yeah, you're right. Let's
give him a nice salt rub.
Yeah, let's just draw a line under it there.
I mean, sometimes I soak my comics in vinegar and jar them for the winter.
It's pile it high with sugar.
So we've been Angela, Matt, Will, and Zach collectively. Before we put this podcast into the cryo chamber to keep it. And we will continue to be.
Yeah.
Somehow.
This has been Bigger Than Capes, and remember that comics are bigger than capes.